Megan Hicks of I Run Far. I'm with Arlen Glick. It's the day after the 2022 Western States Endurance Run, and you are the men's third place finisher. How are you feeling at this very moment?
Way too good.
Let's start with what you said at the finish line yesterday at your finish line interview with Dylan Bowman and Corinne Malcolm. You said you had a 20-mile low patch. What happened there, and where was that exactly?
Yeah, so it was around it was after Duncan Canyon.
Okay.
No. What's the next one?
Dusty Corners, maybe?
Dusty Corners,
okay.
yeah. So I had crew access and I was relying on Morton, which was giving me a lot of calories, and I was feeling great on it. And so I got to Dusty Corners, did my thing, felt pretty good, and I got to Devil's Thumb, and I was relying on other aid stations at that point. And I think whatever they were putting in my bottle was really watered down, and I didn't really think about it. But there was just a long spell there where I was not paying attention to calorie intake.
Like not counting the calories and...
I didn't know how many calories were in it.
And
you're
so guessing, kind of.
Yeah, it was kind of a guessing game, and I just, I was so overtrained going into it, I believe, that, I didn't even feel the bonk, and yet I was having one, and, it was so elusive, so tricky, and then, that induced my hamstring to cramp a bunch, which I carried all the way to the finish line, which I'm glad I took it to the finish line.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, it was a day of, getting through the hard points, not sure, not being able to climb. I hiked pretty much every climb from Devil's Thumb to the finish line, which is the last 60 miles or whatever. But I didn't have many cards to play, but I feel like I just played the ones I had well.
Just kept going strongly.
Yeah, once I made it to Forest Hill, from then on, my calorie intake was spot on.
Because you were back with your crew and your own nutrition. And
yeah, so I was back on my nutrition plan, which really helped, but the cramping never did leave completely. Sodium was a little tricky. We were trying something new, and my capsules were coming loose and leaking. And so I was scratching for every bit of salt I could find, almost licking the rocks.
Like a deer or something?
Yeah. But it was great, though. My quads were so overbuilt from the training block I had that it didn't matter how hard I pushed the downs. It was only when they got real technical that my hamstring would start seizing up, and yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the men's race dynamic. Were you thinking about it early on? Or, I guess the way that I want to ask this, or what I'm curious about, is you've done so many of these 100-mile races that you know that there's going to be these inevitable highs and lows, and it's 100 miles. Were you thinking about racing early? Were you thinking, I'll wait to race later? Where was your head on that?
Yeah, so I stick strictly to effort-based.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, I eat 100-milers for breakfast. So, I know what it's supposed to feel like. And the minute that Adam, was pushing outside of my zone, it was like I wasn't even tempted to go with him, because I know where I need to be. And he climbs really well, and I do downhill well, and so it wasn't really smart for us to stick together.
Yeah.
So I was shocked. I've always heard of the carnage that happens at States.
Yeah.
And we were at a minute a mile slower than course record for the first aid station. And I remember thinking, I can see all the my top picks. They're all in sight of me. And that was clear down to Duncan Canyon, mile 24. And I'm like, these guys are going slow today, and they are going to execute all the way to the end. I remember thinking...
So you're thinking everybody's going to execute here.
Yes, I remember thinking, I cannot bank on a blow up, all the other guys blowing up. That I'm used to, knowing that they're running too fast. That's okay. We'll see them later on. So the dynamic was very different from what I expected.
So in your mind, you thought, I'm going to stay in my own zone, in my own effort. Everybody's going to go away, and they're going to come back later on.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I thought they were going to come back later on. I figured it all depended on how well they executed their plan. But there were some spots that were so low. I can remember people passing me around Michigan Bluff, and I was thinking, you know what? I'm not even going to top 10 today. And I was like, you know what? This is Western States. I can try again. I can try to qualify again. I'm like, you know what? I am going to have fun no matter how bad this goes. And I can remember I watched Unbreakable soon before the race, and where the guy who won lost his climbing legs.
Yeah.
And he won the race. And that's what like gave me this hope that, you know what, I can't climb right now, but I can sure run downhill.
So you're thinking of Jeff Rose circa 20, was it 2008 or 2010?
I think 10.
Yeah. Jeff Rose circa 2010. He lost his climbing legs, but there's a lot of running later. This is what you're thinking.
Yes, and like the chorus saved me. That after Forest Hill, once I got my calorie intake back up, I still had to deal with cramping. I still couldn't climb, but like I could finally run down fast. And I just played any section I could. And I felt kind of bad for some of the guys that I was leapfrogging, but I just felt like I had to run as every step I could as well as I could.
When did you start to feel like, was there a psychological switch where you're like, well, I'm going to be happy to finish this. I'm going to come back and qualify again to, I'm in it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a sudden switch, but I remember I caught two guys right after Forest Hill that had caught me at Michigan Bluff. And like it was, I could tell a distinct difference in the pace I was running, the effort I was giving, and I was feeling so good at the effort I was giving. And one thing that really saved me was not fighting through those low times, like accepting the low times, because I feel like so many guys screw up when they start to hurt, they start to push. And like it takes them out of that safe zone where they need to thrive.
There might be a lesson for all of us ultra runners in that statement.
Yeah, well, like I do terrible at anything less than 100 miles. And I was thinking yesterday, I don't even know what my split was coming into Forest Hill. It was embarrassing. Like it was horrible. And I remember thinking, yep, this is one more time where if this were 100K, it would make me look like a fool.
I love it. When did you move into podium position officially?
So there were some guys nipping at my heels, but when I got to third, I caught Jared, I think about 82 miles, and I can remember coming up behind him, and we had a little fiasco with one of my pacers who wasn't feeling good, and I couldn't take the camera. He couldn't take the camera up to Green Gate and switch off. So I was like, I caught Jared, and I saw him up ahead, and at this point, I'm hiking every climb, and he was running the climb. But I was closing the gap, and I'm like, something's not right. If I'm hiking faster than he's running, like something's not right. And so I was pretty sure I had Jared, but like that was just a very slim glimmer of hope because I knew the chance of someone else catching me from behind, which proved to be very close at the end, like was going to be the chat like that. I didn't know. When
you moved into podium position, did you think to yourself, okay, I'm going to protect the crap out of this now and defend it as much as I can? Were you more looking forward, being like, who's in front of me? What's the gap to second?
Yeah, so I kept getting reports that Hayden Hawks was like 10 minutes out, and it was like a consistent like 10, 8, 10, like we were running probably the same, but I didn't know, is he running the ups better than me? Is he running the downs better? Is he running an even effort? Because I wasn't running an even effort. Like I was bombing the downs. And that makes it really hard when someone's on your heels and you know that you're running certain portions really slow and you can't defend that.
There's nothing you can do about that moment, right?
Yes. It's like, so I tried so hard to run just as hard as I could and put gap on the descents and then just pray they didn't catch me on the climbs.
Ultimately, here at the track, it was not quite a sprint finish, but it was darn close. Tyler Green was nipping about as close as one can nip in a 100-mile ultramarathon. How did the last bit play out for you?
We have to jump back to 85.
Okay, let's jump back.
So I come into the aid station at 85 miles, knowing that I heard cheering at the river, 80 miles, when I was not very far up the hill. And so I knew somebody was within 2 minutes unless they took a nap at the river.
Shouting distance or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
So depending
unless they took a nap. Could happen in Western states.
Yes. So I got to 85, and I am like on my plan, taking care of myself. I'm sitting down, I'm icing down. And just as I'm about ready to take off, someone comes in the aid station, and it was a guy with a beard, and I didn't know. I think it was Tyler,
Okay.
but I thought it was someone else.
Okay.
So I thought it was the guy that I had passed out of Forest Hill, and I'm like, shoot,
He's back.
I've got 2.5 hours, and he's back to haunt me.
He's back.
So I like just tore out of there, and thank God there was a bunch of flat and some downhill, and I just
in your favor course-wise.
yes,
Yeah.
and so I had to put time because I knew there's climbs. Like I have to get ahead while I can, because if he catches a glimpse of how slow I'm going on the ups, like I am toast. So I think it probably was Tyler. I asked Tyler afterwards, and he didn't know I was in the aid station at that point.
Okay.
He didn't know how close it was until he got to Pointed Rocks. So at 90 something, there's an aid station. We didn't make contact there.
Got it.
But he came back to haunt me at Pointed Rocks. And as you know, there's a nice long descent out of Pointed Rocks, and then a climb back into Auburn. And I, as much as I could taste the finish line, I'm planning this out in my head. I said, I'm going to have to hike into Auburn. So if I don't put like 3 minutes on this dude,
To make
on
enough
this,
room.
down to no hands, like in this 3-mile section, I am going to be toast. So like my strategy to that segment, and so I was sitting there at the aid station cooling down, and they're like, my crew is like, my sister says, the other guy's in the aid station, like,
You gotta go.
she didn't say you got to go, like I just bounced out of the chair and like took off. I didn't even know if I had the stuff I needed, but I just like I took off, and they're like, do you need a headlight? And I'm like,
I hope not.
no. I'm like, I want the pressure. Like I want the pressure.
Huh.
And besides, if someone's hunting me, I don't want to wear a light anyway.
Yeah.
So I took off, and I was kind of hoping maybe I would drop my pacer in those 3 miles just to confirm, maybe let Tyler, which I didn't know was Tyler at the time, catch my pacer, or so, you think of weird things.
Yeah.
I ran very well, but like the cramp was trippable cramping the whole way down to no hands. But I was like, you know what? I'm okay with a blow up. Like this is the point where you take the risk.
Yeah.
And I remember I got really close to no hands, and I'm coming down, and I twisted my knee.
Oh,
And
Arlen.
it was like it almost blew my knee out because I was running a stupid pace. But there again, risk.
Taking a risk.
And fortunately, my knee wasn't hurt, but it was like that was close. And I crossed no hands, didn't hear any cheering behind me, which gave me a little glimmer of hope. But I guess Tyler was playing it really smart at this point. So I ran as far as I could, and you know how it is when you get into Auburn, like the closer you get to Auburn, the steeper it gets.
Steeper and steeper.
So it got to the steep point, like the last mile, and I hiked the last mile. As embarrassing as it is, just had to play the cards I had.
Yeah.
I remember getting to the top of Roby Point, like clear to the top, and I looked back and I could see a long way back, and there's nobody back there. And I'm like, okay, I've got this.
He was just being a ghost, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess he tore up that climb right after I got over the top. Because
our person said it was 28 seconds, I think, between the two of you at Roby Point.
Was it?
I think so.
So maybe I just didn't see him.
Yeah.
Whatever it was crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I am going to soak up Western States. So I'm giving high fives coming down through Auburn. I'm like, I am going to enjoy this moment.
Okay.
Like,
you think he's distant now?
Yeah, I figured he's 2 minutes back.
Uh-huh.
And if I need to throw down a 5:30, whatever, like I can do it. I just come off of what I did out of Pointed Rocks, and I'm like, I have another gear if I need it. And so I told my crew, which this B crew was with me, the entire crew at this point, and they're running down with me. And I said, okay, guys, watch out. Like, if he gets in sight, let me know. And they never said anything until we made the left-hand turn onto the track, and somebody yelled, Tyler is closing fast. And like the you can't see very far back, so I knew if they could see him, he was very close. And I remember just like here I was going to go around and give high fives and have a good finish on.
Have a tour of the track.
Yeah, and yeah, my pacer I think clocked me at a 5:20 pace around the track. It was like, I don't want to be a jerk, but like I have
Off we
to.
go.
Yeah, like sprint to the finish anyway. And I remember I fell over afterwards, and I turned around and I looked back, and Tyler rounded the corner, and he respectfully just broke into a walk, and just it was such a cool moment to be the first one to hug Tyler when he comes. He's such a good guy. Yeah.
If you have to go to a sprint finish in a 100-mile race with somebody, like the two of you it's like two nice guys sprinting it out, right?
Yeah, it was great. I thought what Tyler said, I was third, he was fourth. And, I think someone said if he would have run the whole way through, we would have been 17 seconds apart. But, he walked because obviously he wanted to be sportsmanlike about it. And it was really neat to be there and to hear him say, this was more special than taking second place last year. Yeah. And I thought that was well said, because the story we have to tell tops a better performance.
Yeah. You finished on the podium at Western States. This is your first Western States. You get this coveted M3 bib. Are you going to do something with it?
I hadn't thought of the M3, but I guess. Well, after running the course, I think this course was made for me. So, I think I would be stupid not to do something with it. But, I mean, that's a year out. I don't know. But, I mean, yeah, I think so.
You seem like a study of the sport. Objectively, if you zoom out to be your coach for a second, what do you think is your potential at Western States?
It's really hard to say. I was hoping this would be the accurate, debut Western States where I would have my day. It was so far from my day that, I think I'd be a fool to put a number out there, because, I don't want to disrespect the people in front of me.
Yeah.
What Adam did, what Jim did, I don't even want to say, because, you haven't done it till you've done it. Yeah. I might come back next year and do the same dumb thing or whatever. But, and also with gratitude, I can't believe there for a while I wasn't going to top 10, and I reeled in a podium.
It's just a great kind of metaphor for the sport. It's a metaphor for life. It's a long journey and things change.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, congratulations on your podium finish at the 2022 Western States Endurance Run, and perhaps we'll see you in 2023.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was